Hi, I'm Rachel Chamness at soundwavesheal.com. Welcome to Ascension and 5D Chats, where we talk about Ascension. I'm here today with Kerri Mouch at Sensory Healing for the Soul, and we are talking about the Last Supper with Jesus and Magdalene and what really was happening and what it's really about. Welcome to Ascension and 5D Chat, where we discuss what is happening with our planet's ascension journey. I am Rachel Chamness. I help lightworkers connect to their spiritual helpers and light path.
Okay. Hi, thanks for having me.
So Kerri Mouch is at Sensory Healing for the Soul. She's a sound healer, angel guide, and crystal therapist. She's also a medium as a part of Tag Team, which is part of my monthly group. And so she does a lot of really cool activations for us. And this month, she's actually doing an extra attunement, sound healing attunement, because Kerri and I actually know each other from back in our college days at music school. And we're both trained opera singers. Not that you need to be an opera singer to be a sound healer, but you know, it's kind of fun. So we were supposed to talk today about crystal mermaids, but then something happened and Kerri got a huge download about the Last Supper with Jesus and Mary Magdalene and what really happened, which is so fascinating. We absolutely realized we had to talk about it today, right?
Right, exactly. Sometimes the spirit has other plans, and we decided we were going to listen to what they were saying.
So I love this because I've always really been fascinated with the Last Supper, and I love to look, I love to look at the what's the famous painting where Jesus is like leaning to the side and there's like that hole, that V, and I'm like,
yes,
try to imagine Mary Magdalene there.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Oh, I know. I've read a lot of the books.
Da Vinci?
And the
I can't remember.
Da Vinci Code talked about that book, Dan Brown.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yes. I've always been fascinated with all of that and always felt like there was something more. It just didn't completely add up. I just felt like we weren't told the whole story, or there was
Imagine that.
Yeah, I know. I just felt like there was more to it. And there are a lot of things that I can kind of explain in other scenarios, other stories that were told. And the Last Supper just never, I just couldn't quite, it never just felt right. Whatever I imagined just never felt right. And so yesterday, I was kind of shown another scenario. And I guess I should start by saying that Jesus and Mary Magdalene are my master teacher guides. So they are with me, very present all the time. And they do that jointly, which makes a lot of sense for many reasons. It's not one or the other. They often come just like as a team.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
So for those of you who don't know what she means, she's talking about her spirit guides, one of her main spirit guides. So they always come together? They're always together?
Not always, but a lot of the time they are. And I do feel that when they come together, it's very balancing and very peaceful. I mean, there might be a reason that one or the other needs to come in for a specific reason, but a lot of times they're both there. They're like a little unit. And it makes more and more sense to me the more that I learn why they are together all the time.
I have to tell you something that, I talk to Mary Magdalene a lot because we have a past life together. But when it was time for her to come forward for Tag, that 1 month where we talked to Mary Magdalene, Jesus was also there and he was like, me too. And I was like, no, dude, this is all divine feminine. No, you can't come. And he was like, no, we come together.
Yeah.
Finally, I was like, I don't want to do this. And then I realized, oh, this is religious trauma I have. And then the whole month became about religious and actually parental trauma. That month is all about that. So it was kind of funny because I also had the resistance. Now I don't have any resistance anymore. That month cleared it up, but it's kind of funny.
Yeah, no, totally. And I do find that a lot of people, when we start talking about this topic, it is attached to religious or a religion. And I look at it now more, it's a spiritual thing. I don't look at it from a religious standpoint all the time.
Same here.
And that's really important. And I feel like a lot of people are still feeling trauma and pain from that, from a religious standpoint. And I think that's what they were trying to show me with the information that they gave me. So, I don't know if I'm jumping ahead of myself, but when I was asking Mary Magdalene about that, what we were told isn't always exactly right, especially things concerning her and what her role was at that time with the apostles and with Jesus. And I was just, kind of talking to her, like, what do you feel, or what are we supposed to take away from that? And because a lot of people are very upset about that, about the feminine being covered and pushed away. And she just, looked at me and was like, there is no anger or bitterness. It's all coming from a place of love. We realized that everybody that came to earth at that time had a role to play, and the earth was in a certain place. And the whole reason for Jesus coming in, for Magdalene coming in, for bringing in the Christ light at that point, at that time, was to effect a shift, to effect a change. They knew that, and so they weren't angry about it. They were trying to create the change, and they did. I mean, look, we're still talking about it how many thousands of years later, and I think now, people then probably weren't ready to hear the full message of what they were
Oh,
saying.
that's what I'm always thinking. I always feel like I look at Jesus's words, and then I look at what people think he means, and I'm just like, I wonder if Jesus just spent his whole life trying to talk to people about how we're all one and
Mhm.
how we are part of God, and it just got so misconstrued. And finally, he was just like, I absolve you of your sins, okay? Just stop beating yourself up. Like, I'm just going to take that, whatever you understand from here, I'm just going to tell you now.
Yeah, yeah, I completely think they couldn't hear the full message, but some did, and that's what I got yesterday.
See, that's what
Is
I always wondered too. I wonder if his disciples were getting the full ascension and light body message.
right, and I do feel that Jesus came into this life with the knowledge and knew who he was, and it's possible that Mary Magdalene did too. I kind of think she did. I think she was much more on par with him than we realize. But I think the disciples, the apostles especially, um, were on a journey, and it was Jesus and Mary Magdalene that were reawakening in them the knowledge of their truer selves. And so how far they got on that process, I think they got pretty far. Did
I
they get
think so.
completely, where he was? I don't know. But I think that what the process that they went through then is very strikingly resembling what we're going through now, as we're awakening to our light and the Christ light inside of each of us. So I thought it was a very interesting parallel, that the journey that the apostles went on with him physically present, and then what we're going through now, and he's still very present, but just not in that physical form like they had. Just thought it was very. I've never had that parallel before. I never had that thought before. That was definitely given to me yesterday.
I love it. So tell us what you saw.
Okay, so we all know the story. Jesus is blessing the bread and the wine, and he's saying, "Do this in remembrance of me." And it just, I couldn't see it. It just wasn't right in my head. And so yesterday, what came to me is that he was doing some kind of ritual with Mary Magdalene. And I guess first I should say, it wasn't just Jesus and the 12 apostles that we know, that the men, there were also women. There were lots of women, and it was a one-on-one balance. For every male, there was a female, and it was just such an embodiment of balancing the divine masculine and feminine. And Jesus and Mary Magdalene were the model. And so what he was doing, and I do think he was kind of in charge, if you will. I mean, not above her, but he was kind of running the show. And what they were doing, it's not completely clear to me, but they were doing something with their hands, intertwining, and it was a joining of divine masculine and divine feminine energy. And it was, I believe, some type of initiation of sorts. And the two of them modeled it for everyone else. And then each apostle was paired with a woman who, I think my impression was, they had been working together this whole time. Like, it wasn't just these women randomly showed up. These were people that were joined, spiritually, just as Jesus and Mary Magdalene were. And each pair, male and female, repeated what Jesus and Mary Magdalene did. That it was a teaching, like, this is what I want you to do. Do this in memory of me. Do this now to bring, it was about anchoring in the Christ light. You do this now and you're anchoring the Christ light to yourselves and to each other in this bond. And then it's your job to go out and teach this to others. That's what they were supposed to teach, is that balance of divine masculine and feminine. And it comes through the Christ light.
That's amazing. So I just keep thinking of the causal chakra and how that fifth dimensional chakra, and how the true balance of it is a balance of real of ascended male and female energy, or just not toxic femininity or toxic masculine, which there's so much toxic masculinity and femininity in this world that people don't even know what divine masculinity is, or divine feminine. And the causal chakra is one where I'm always checking, when I do sessions, like, is it balanced? Are these two things balanced? And in fact, I always see Magdalene and Yeshua there, Jesus there in that space. And so that's so cool. When you're talking, it's like, I feel so like I'm starting to channel, and I feel like it's really hard to stay here while you were talking. I'm like, woo, the energy.
That happens when we get together.
I saw them like almost doing like a hand fasting, where they were putting their hands together and wrapping a ribbon around it.
Yes. That's what I saw, like a wrapping of ribbon. It almost, at first I was like, is this some type of marriage ceremony? But it's beyond what we perceive as a marriage ceremony between a man and a woman on this earth. It's divine. It's a joining of energies. It's completely, and that's part of why I think we couldn't fathom it, because it's something that we're just now raising our vibration high enough to understand it. At least this part.
When I ask the disciples, the male and female disciples, were they couples? I'm getting no, they were working together, and that's the sort of thing I think people would have a hard time understanding. They were working together to bring the divine masculinity and femininity together. And I get that in different ways, in 12 different ways. And of course, the number 12 means the number for ascension.
And Jesus and Mary Magdalene were the 13th.
And 13 is the number of divine feminine.
I know.
Oh my gosh. So exciting.
Oh, you made a good point though. It wasn't like they were romantically linked, the male and female. That wasn't at all what I got. It's not like that. It supersedes that. That's a very 3D mindset.
Exactly. That's kind of what I'm getting, that would have been a lot to take in,
Right. And those, I think that's what I meant when I was saying that I think that they evolved enough in that lifetime to remember a lot of these things because of his teachings. And, I can only imagine being in his physical presence. I mean, I connect with him spiritually, and that's a lot. But if I was in his physical presence, that's the other thing. People call him Jesus Christ, but he's Jesus of the Christ, of the Christ light.
Yes, that's right.
Because he embodies the Christ light more completely than any other human that we know of that came into this planet. And so it's like, when we can embody the Christ light as well, we become like him. Mm-hmm. Just, we're all equal. It's not this one's above that one or anything. And I think that's just the message he was trying to bring in is,
I think so.
You are the Christ.
Exactly.
All of you. We are the Christ.
Find the kingdom of God within, because we are all one. Yes.
Exactly.
Let's talk a little bit about religious trauma and how this triggers people, because and ask the audience, if you're watching this, do you feel like you have religious trauma? And to comment below if you do, because so many people have religious trauma. And just the word Jesus can send people, and it used to just send me into all kind of traumatic. I couldn't even hear the word Jesus, and I was like, ah. And I told you, Kerri, the other day about that time I had a meditation. I was led through this personal meditation, and it was my Reiki master, and she said, now you're going to meet, I think she just said, like, a guide is going to come and talk to you. And it was Jesus. And I remember thinking, are you here to see me? Like, are you sure you're here to see me? Like, this doesn't seem right. And he was like, yes, I am. And I was like,
Mhm.
okay. And
Mhm.
I think that started to help me heal. And he talked to me about Ascension, and I told him my worries about the oceans being cleaned up and things like that. And he really helped me with that. But that's a whole nother story. But now I talk to him all the time. But and I love talking to him because he's funny. He's very funny.
Yes.
He's a
Yeah.
little jokester.
He is his personality, and I feel like because when you hold that much Christ light within you, that which to me is divine
Joy.
love, then it brings forth a joy that is indescribable.
Yes.
And that's just
Mhm.
where he resonates all the time. Yeah, he's very happy,
Mhm. Very joyful.
very joyful.
He makes jokes and
Mhm.
it's funny. Yeah.
He does. And, it's so funny because he also came forward for me during my Reiki attunements. He was the first person the first guide that I ever saw and connected to. And of course, I don't have religious traumas. I didn't have that, on my path, but I think he came forward because I could relate to that. And it made it easier for me to open up to more things because I'm like, oh, okay, it's Jesus, it's safe. So it's
Mhm.
funny, like we had two totally opposite experiences. You were like, whoa, Jesus, I'm not sure about it. And I'm like, Jesus, okay, I can.
That's
And I think
funny.
that's probably representative for a lot of people. We all have a different experience.
Yeah,
Neither one is right or wrong. They're
that's
just
right.
our experiences. Yeah.
Yes, I agree. Of course, I agree. We agree on a lot. So,
I mean, obviously, they knew this was it. They knew he was about to leave.
mhm.
Um, and that was a real struggle. They did have to um, kind of process that because they did have such a bond with him. He was their teacher and their guide and their leader at that time, and he had brought them, so far forward. And so that was a very, very emotional moment. And I feel like whatever they did, this initiation or ceremony that happened was extremely it was something that I think they had prepared for and they had worked toward, and that moment had come. So it was almost like a very joyous moment because they had reached that, you know, but also they knew, oh, we've reached that. So now it's time for him to go.
I feel like he was teaching them about their light bodies and how to step into that light body. And I feel that they did many of the things that we all do now, meditate and try to reach those high states, speak to spirit guides. I mean, perhaps, often when we talk about Reiki, we talk about how did Jesus heal people? How did Buddha heal people through their hands, through divine channeled light? That is what
Mhm.
Reiki is. So perhaps he passed that on to them and they were healing others
Absolutely.
in a great way that was just not in the books, because then it takes away from the story that,
Mhm.
it's perpetuated. So,
Right. No, I totally think that occurred, and they went on to heal people like he did
I
in many
believe
accounts. And I do think, them going out and proclaiming the message that he sent, that was triggering for the people at the time, and that's why they were prosecuted just like he was. And like we had talked earlier, I just think that they weren't ready. It was too scary. It was too big. Um, it
and
just
yet we're still talking about it. So, and I have chills. Like, they did it, it was scary, and they definitely were, crucified for it. But on the other hand, it people still talk about it.
Right.
And maybe now we're just now understanding what Jesus was saying, but it's still written there for us to understand. I mean, we
Mhm.
still have all the books of all the disciples, or most of the males anyway. um,
Mhm. Yeah.
and we're able to look at his words and see what he was really saying.
Right. Oh, I totally agree. Now we can dive deeper. And it just makes me think, if we're at this point right now, there's got to be more that we don't understand still. I just wonder how much deeper it will go, how much more will come to light. Because I do see this as all as a good thing. I know that it's painful for a lot of people, but I feel like it's come to the time for us to release a lot of that you know, the trauma and the dark sides that kind of haunt us or bring us pain or whatever. It's time to release that so we can step forward like he originally wanted us to, like Magdalene originally wanted us to. She is such an embodiment of love. Oh gosh,
Mhm.
her energy is just
It's
phenomenal.
beautiful.
Yes, it's nothing but love. And I think if we,
His too, really.
yeah, well,
I mean,
both,
that's all he was ever talking about was love.
absolutely. That's all all comes back to love. It all comes back to the heart. And the balance of it all is just so, to me, it's just been hitting home, coming to me in so many ways in the last several weeks. It's like they keep trying to remind me, oh, it's a duality, but it's not a polarity. It's not opposing forces. There's a balance of two, but that doesn't mean they have to,
That's right.
you know,
Repel each
hurt each
other.
other.
Yeah.
Yeah, repel. Exactly. It comes
It's not
together.
one over the other. They
Right.
come together.
Exactly. And a beautiful joining that is essentially like the oneness that we all are. We are all one, and that's kind of what it's all connected to that. It's really beautiful. I want so much for other people to feel it because I mean, it really moves me. It's very emotional and a beautiful thing. It's different than I've really experienced than other energies.
And what do you think the bread and the wine? Do you think there was something else about it in the Last Supper?
Um,
Because I've always wondered that.
right.
Because
Right.
it seems really morbid.
Right. No, I know. This is my body. And I always wonder, like, why are we eating his body?
That's
Like,
so
I
nasty.
don't,
Are we vampires? This is my blood.
yeah. Yeah. I know that's the thing. Like, it struck me. And I feel now that it's more about the light body
I
and
think
the
so.
energy. And
And maybe it was, this is my light body, or
and,
this is your light body.
right. And maybe he was actually putting that energy into the wine, into the bread, kind of like we Reiki our food or something and we raise its vibration, or we take a crystal and we put the energy into the crystal. I do believe he was doing that, and he was bringing that into what was on the table. I also see like these big bowls of water. There was some kind of water involved
I
in
see
the
that.
ceremony,
Mhm.
and they were like over the water. They're the joined hands. So I'm not really sure what that was, but
Oh, I think it could have been, what if it was water, bread for earth? Bread would have been a really good representation of earth at that time
mhm,
because of agriculture.
mhm,
Um, Perhaps it was just changed to blood, or maybe it is my blood is your blood. We are all one.
right, right. Exactly. I think he was putting that, and if he's putting the Christ light into it, to me that Christ light is what unifies us. That's
Mhm.
when I tap into that, that's when I really sense the oneness of
Me too.
all. Oh,
Mhm.
good, cool. And I feel like that's what he was doing. It was all revolved around that. But if you think about it, at the time, maybe the apostles and disciples understood what he was saying, but someone who was not open, or the veil had not been lifted enough, they would not have been able to make sense of that. So they had to use words that they could make sense of. And so when it was written and recorded and kept, I think it got changed because that's what people could handle at the time.
Mhm. I
But
get that.
maybe it was all a purpose, because now, like, I don't think it was wrong. I don't think it was like, no, it was supposed to be different. I don't think that. I think that there was all purpose to this, and it needed to unfold in a certain way.
Yes. I mean, there's purpose to everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everything has a purpose. And
Yeah.
every path is the correct path.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
feel like this week or last week, I've had so many sessions where people were saying, I made the wrong choice. I made the wrong choice and I just can't get over it. And I mean, I had like 4 of those in one day. And each one they were like, you didn't make the wrong choice. You made a choice, and
Right.
you are the path, and all your paths come out to the same place.
Yes.
And as you know, you're on the right path. It's a lesson. That's all it is a
Right.
lesson.
You're always going to get there.
Mhm. I mean, now there's ways that you might not get there if you totally step off the path, but you know when you're off the path and when you're on the path, you know when you're connected and when you're not, you know?
Well, and see, I always think you're going to get there. Even if you step off for a little while, you may take the scenic route, like a real big scenic route, for a long time. But eventually we all return to source.
And even if you transition to death before you get back on the path, that was just the way. I mean, everybody has a purpose. Your purpose may be to just affect one person so that they change the world. And perhaps we talked about this, Shannon and I talked about this last time. Perhaps you're to affect them in a negative way. You never know. But everyone has a purpose and everybody has a path, and you're just never off the path. I just meant,
I wouldn't have learned lessons in my life if there weren't other people that did things in opposition of me that even hurt me deeply. I mean, those were the times that I learned the most and I grew the most. So I don't regret that,
Oh, yeah. I had
and if you apply
that, that were just so,
yeah,
you learn at the rock bottom sometimes.
Yeah, well, I think, yes, definitely. But think about if you apply that to humanity at large, then it's the same thing. I feel like everybody plays a role. It's not that person is bad. It's just at this point, they've chosen to help this person learn a lesson.
Yes.
And
I see that. I've seen that with people where, people in my family where it was questioned, like, what was his purpose? What could possibly have been his purpose? But look how he affected this one person and how that person became, so just really understood their essence, or, it's like it really affected them. And sometimes you say, I'm not going to do that. That's the thing I'm not going to do. And because of that, you do great things.
Right.
So I do believe that you also mentioned the crucifixion when you told me this. Did you?
I did.
Let's talk about that.
Okay.
Well, I think that you mentioned that there was a group of women there.
Okay.
That is honestly how I normally see it. And so I was just curious about what it looks like.
Right. Well, I mean, again, this is just what I get, and other people may get different things, which is fine. I do see it kind of play out the story that we all know. And there was a large group of the women, that were his apostles as well, that were at the Last Supper, and Mary Magdalene and his mother Mary. And, I don't know who they all were. I'm not sure how they were all related, but I do believe it was the ones that he had been teaching and working with that were close to him. I think some of the other apostles were there, the 12 men that we hear of that aren't maybe mentioned. We know some were named, but not all. And we know some weren't there, but at least that's what's written. And when I see it, I guess I feel like the people that were following him and trying to embody what he was teaching them were there. And it was an extremely painful tearing, ripping away, as we could imagine. It was a very, very emotional moment.
And when a great light left Earth, I'm sure that was felt as well.
Right. And I feel like that was felt not just with the people that had been following him and living his word. I think at that moment, all the people there, even the ones that were just, the curious onlookers, or maybe the people that were like crucified, at that moment when it happened, when his soul was rendered from his body, I think they all knew. They were like, whoa, it was such a cosmic moment, such a big moment, a shift that's just undeniable, that you can't gloss over that. You feel that no matter where you stood, you felt that shift.
And what a prophet to be born during they talk about the star, that he was born under the star, but I mean, it's just a cosmic event. It was just an astrological event that he happened to be born under. It was an event that brought in the Christ light, just like I believe 12, 21, 20 also brought in a lot.
Yes, it did.
A lot of Christ light.
It did.
we're still, bringing
Still
it in.
recovering.
Let's talk about the resurrection and what you think about it and what I think about it, because it's something I've often thought about. We
Mm-hmm.
both grew up Catholic.
Mm-hmm.
And, I always see it as him showing them, here I am in my light body. Here I am. You never die. Don't worry. You
Mm-hmm.
never die. Take
Mm-hmm.
your life a little more lightly. You're not going to die. This is not everything. This is a life, Put your hand on my side. It's still there, but here I am.
Yes, I agree with that. I do feel like he was in his light body and more, an ascended form, obviously. And it was almost like they talked about these things. He taught them these things, but then here was it for real. It's kind of like we get all of these messages, we have all these experiences, but to actually have him come back in a form that they recognized and knew, because he could take any form. He didn't have to take that body, but he showed them his, his wounds, and he showed them that body so they could understand, because they needed that, I think, to, they had a tough job to go out what they had to do after he left. And
Well,
so
they needed a miracle for this story to last this long. They
yeah,
needed a real miracle where thousands of people saw it,
absolutely.
Otherwise it
Absolutely.
would not have lasted this long.
Right. And I can only imagine seeing him in that way, what that does to their own physical bodies, had to raise them up so high just to be in that presence, and
That's another good point. I bet anyone in his presence felt that
right.
vibrational shift and couldn't deny that he was an embodiment of light.
It's funny because I always say, this is what I feel. When you truly embody the Christ light and you let that in, you have to have a shift in yourself, because lower energy, negative things cannot exist in the same space, just can't exist in the same space as the Christ light, because it is so powerful and transmuting that it raises the vibration of everything that it touches to align with the frequency of love. Like it doesn't like blow it all away. It just changes it. It raises it up. No, but I do see that with, it's just the Christ light and negativity can't exist in the same space, because it comes in and it just changes everything and it raises the vibration. And I think that's what he did in his life. And when he came back, it was probably that much stronger, because he was no longer in this physical body. He was in his ascended body and his light body, and the energy of that, I could only imagine.
Well, we can imagine. I mean, think about what it's like when we talk to a light body such as Jesus or Yeshua or Magdalene or, Greek
Angel.
goddess Diana. I mean, we talk to all kinds of beings, light beings,
Mm-hmm.
and how you have to raise your vibration to get the message. And just think how much stronger that would be if they just 3D were right in front of you. I mean, that would be incredible.
Yes. Oh, yes. Yeah.
I mean, I feel super high just talking about it.
I know.
Well, thank you. Thank you for coming and talking about this. You were very brave to talk about your. I mean, it is brave that people have so much religious trauma that even the mentioning of these things can really turn people off. But I thought it was really important.
Well, and I think that's why it came forward, and it was pretty strong. And like I said, I kept saying, no, we need to talk about the crystal mermaids. But Mary Magdalene was like, no, you really need to do this. I think that's her way and their way of trying to help people heal.
Mm-hmm.
Just shifting the focus and knowing that it's time to let go of the pain and rise up into that Christ light too.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you, Kerri. Thanks for coming. You all can find Kerri at Sensory Healing for the Soul on Facebook is where you'll find her.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
well, thank you so much for having me. This was great.
It was fun. I just love talking to you, and I knew that this would be fun to do. I mean, I wish they could hear all our other conversations.
They're not ready.
That's funny. Well, everyone, thank you so much for coming. I would love to hear below if you feel like you have religious trauma, and if you do, if this gave you any kind of ping, or what you've thought about this conversation, or if you have seen as a medium or a spiritualist, if you have seen anything about the Last Supper, if you agree, if you disagree, if you see it differently, we want to know. I think it's a really interesting topic.
Yeah, I would love to hear what anybody else might have seen, because I
Mhm.
think we're all shown pieces of the puzzle and we need to put them together to get the full picture.
Definitely. Okay, well, thanks, Kerri.
Well, thank you.